statement.
Reagan from Ohio. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I reserve the right to yield the remainder of my time to my closing summation.
That is your right.
18 years. That is the average amount of time that a retired member of Congress has served in order to receive their pension. 40 years. That is the average amount of time that a private sector worker retired receiving Social Security has worked. $35,952. That is the average annual benefit of a retired member of Congress. $14,748. That is the average yearly benefit of a retired worker receiving Social Security. When you run the numbers, you realize that members of Congress work less than half the time to receive more than twice the benefits of the average American worker. The figures for the other affected groups in this proposal are similarly alarming. These people who are supposed to serve us have become insulated from us. They dine on champagne and caviar, while our grandparents are pinching their pennies. We cannot keep this up any longer. Social Security and Medicare will be running out of money in 2033 and 2024 respectively. They are in a death spiral. These people must pay their fair share, just like everyone else in America. So before you rank this proposal, before you vote, ask yourself, while my nest egg is being stolen from me, while my future is in jeopardy, why should my member of Congress have a golden parachute? And with that, I yield the remainder of my time to my closing summation.
I'm from Florida. What is the pension of one of the other positions besides Congress members or president?
Glad you asked. According to the former President's Act of 1958, the president receives $191,000.
Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you, Fields Pierce, North Carolina. Just for clarification, are the current members that are receiving benefits be grandfathered in, or will they be transferred to the regular Social Security system?
They will be grandfathered in.
Thank you.
Amanda Johnson, Michigan delegation. What percent of the time are congressmen all in session together?
I have no idea, but it's pretty low.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Chair. My name is Harrison Homer, and I am from Florida. Proposed author, how many private sector employees have to go through an election process in order to maintain their job?
None.
Thank you.
Matt LaFrance, New Jersey. Do you know the approximate number of hours the average congressman spends outside of Congress working on bills and laws?
I have no idea.
Thank you.
Nita, Minnesota. Currently, is healthcare provided in Congress members' pension?
Yes.
Camilo Rivera, District of Columbia delegation. Is it true that if a senator serves for one or more terms, he automatically receives a six-figure pension?
Yes.
Are there further questions on the floor? The chair recognizes Coletti, Rivera-Canonico, Hughes, Cobb, Farnham, Harrison, the delegate from D.C.
Thank you, David Coletti, Commonwealth of Massachusetts delegation. Are there members of Congress who do not have a college degree?
Yes.
Thank you.
Rivera Canonico from South Carolina. Delegate, why was this system created in the first place?
Delegate, that's debatable.
Thank you, sir. Chair Patriots from the New York delegation. And author, do you know the average salary of a United States congressman?
$150,000 to $200,000 per year.
Thank you.
Cobb, family of Alabama. Would this apply to congressional workers such as legislative assistants or only members of Congress?
Only if you are elected or appointed.
Campbell Harrison, Georgia delegation. Is it true that many congresspeople, after leaving office, after only serving a minimum term, receive benefits such as being exempt from many taxes that all normal citizens have to pay?
I do not have that data at this time.
Go to DC delegation. Arthur, are you aware that in 1850, 76 of the men over 65 were in labor force? In 1950, 47% were, and in 2000, 17% were.
Could you please reiterate? I didn't understand the question.
In 1850, 76% of men over 65 were in the labor force. 1950, 47% were.
Quickly, delegate.
2000, 17% were.
I was not aware of that.
The chair would like to note that questions are supposed to be clarifying in nature or technical in nature and not pointed. With that, are there further questions? The chair recognizes Litton, Zupko, Hill, Choate, Arnold.
Jeff, the Michigan delegation. Would the president be included in this, or just the vice president and the cabinet?
Both.
Joe, Oklahoma, is it true that Congress decides their own pension plans through legislation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hill, Kentucky, would federal judicial pensions be affected?
Yes, because they are appointed by the president.
Zucco, New Jersey, what is the average net worth of a House member or a senator before they enter office?
During office, $13.4 million for a senator and $5.9 million for a House member.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chair Jennifer Arnold, Tennessee delegation. Is it true that congressmen most times still retain their other jobs while receiving these benefits?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Time for technical, non-debatable questions has elapsed.
First of all, I'd like to start off by saying it's not about the money. What this proposal is doing is it's affording something that has been needed to do a long time in principle. However, in fact, it is not fully addressing this issue. I took a look at the proposal, and essentially what it is attempting to do is to put the rich on a more equal playing field with the poor, as long as those rich work for the government. And quite frankly, I think that's slightly ridiculous. We live in a capitalist state, and no matter what the government does, the rich are going to stay rich, and the poor are going to stay poor. First of all, this is affecting, according to the bill's sponsor, pensions for 416 people as of 2006. This is an extremely small amount of people. And it really doesn't solve the problem, which is it's not the money that we're worried about here. These pensions are costing a tiny amount of money compared to the $3 trillion national federal budget we have. But this is attempting to address a separate problem, but incorrectly. In the words of Nathan Hale, my only regret is that I have but one life to lose for my country. One life to lose. In the current day and age, there are almost no government officials who are willing to put down their life and put down their life again for their country. And in the modern day and age, the salaries of these government officials are so high, it doesn't even matter what their pension plans are. They're still making a ridiculous amount of money for serving their nation. In my opinion, in my personal opinion, a government official should not need any money to work for the government. Now, in order for there to be equality between the poor and the rich, they should be given cost of living, because that makes a lot of sense. However, it shouldn't be about giving these government officials $100,000 salaries. It should not be about the money for these individuals. What we need in America today are individuals who are willing to work for nothing, to put their entire life on the line in order to fix America, and quite frankly, that is not what is happening today. This proposal attempts to fix that problem, but it goes about it incorrectly. We need to lower salaries and reduce benefits for these officials. But what this proposal is aiming at is something, quite frankly, that I find ridiculous, which is to try to save money by lowering the pensions for 416 people. And that's something that really will not have any effect on the federal budget. What we need to do today is we need to find people to fix the federal budget, not cut benefits for those people. I yield the rest of my time to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate.
36 years ago today, we've lost our ideal that all Americans are equal. If after 5 years of constant hard work, day after day, an average American tried to retire with a pension, he or she would be laughed to the back of the unemployment line. But if a congressman or senator wanted to retire after 5 years, probably voting present most of the time, he or she would laugh their way right to the bank. So what do? We watch Congress sit back and reap all sorts of profits, yet they still don't reap the political chaos that they sow. This country's debt is $15.8 trillion and rapidly increasing. 43.6 million Americans are going hungry, and 12.7 million Americans are unemployed. And every night when moms and dads wonder how they'll be able to get a job and keep their little boys and girls from being hungry, John McCain goes home to one of his 7 houses across the nation, and Nancy Pelosi goes home to her vineyard in San Francisco. Siri on my iPhone probably knows more about the government than the 535 members of Congress, and Kim Jong-il probably had a higher approval rating than they do. This acting like kings and queens of this Game of Thrones isn't just an awesome TV show on HBO, it's a game Washington plays with America every day. The die is cast, and if Congress wants to play games with the security and well-being of Americans, it's time to tell them game on. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
may I reserve the right to yield time to my fellow delegate, Grissom.
So reserved.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't undermine the work of Congress. Here at Kona, we assume this role for 4 days, and it's really hard to stay focused. Imagine doing this day in and day out. Congressmen don't get to mix it up either. They may review the same legislation for weeks or months at a time. It's also important to remember that what they create is real. It's high stakes. When they raise their votes in support, or when they raise their voices in support and cast their votes, it's real. We can't forget the work of congressmen outside of session either. The amount of pressure that congressmen are under is unhealthy, and we don't want to undermine the work of Congress. Thank you. I give my time.
Tennessee
Delegate,
delegation.
you yielded a minute.
My fellow delegates, to echo what a previous delegate has just said, the congressman, the vice president, and the president of the United States make some of the most difficult decisions in our country. We have to realize that. And we're not going to give them a pension for doing that? That's not right. They still have a family. They still have to feed that family regardless. And so just because, yes, they are in Congress, yes, they do get sometimes a rather large pension, they're making some of the most difficult decisions in our country to make sure we still run. And I feel like that should be rewarded. With that, I yield the rest of my time to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Sure, just a moment, please.
Without these benefits, how is John Kerry going to feed his family? That's a question, nation, that no one is asking. So our Congress members are making far enough money to be able to afford health care and the basic needs. You know, as it says in the proposal itself, our Congress members, on average, are making millions and millions of dollars. These are not the people who need our benefits. People who need more benefits are the people who these Congress people serve. Our nation. Our Congress members are growing more and more out of touch. The more benefits that they receive, the more out of proportion these benefits grow compared to the average benefits of the average American worker. It's unfair, it's wrong, and it puts our Congress in a place where they can't make good legislation because they don't know where the average American is coming from. This is a problem, and this proposal helps solve that problem. Maybe it doesn't go all the way, maybe it won't solve health care, entitlement benefits, but it's a step in the right direction. It's a fiscally responsible step, and I see no reason not to support this proposal. I yield the remainder of my time to Delegate Adams.
You've yielded 45 seconds.
Thank you, Sir Chair. My name is Haley Adams from the California delegation. Book deals, speaking gigs, and apparently now even reality TV shows. These are a couple of the ways in which ex-elected officials can make plenty of money after they leave office. They have many opportunities that are easier than the jobs that most average Americans do, and yet the government is still paying for their pensions. I'd like to echo the previous speaker in saying that this is not a large amount of money. I will agree with that. But it is a step in the right direction, and it is showing our country, the rest of the world, and all of the voters in this country that we will not allow reckless spending anymore. These people have plenty of time on their hands. Hey, they can probably even take time out to read Going Rogue by Sarah Palin. So,
thank you, Delegate. With that, we move.
I reserve my right to yield time to Delegate Franz of New Jersey.
So reserved.
Singing one-liners aside, our congressmen have a 9% approval rating.
Delegate, please display your placard.
Singing one-liners aside, our congressmen have a 9% approval rating. Now, if your car was broken, do you really think that you would get a better car by paying less for your next one? Do you really think you're going to get better results by hiring congressmen that get paid less? Our problem is that these congressmen don't make enough of what they would be doing in their field otherwise. These aren't average workers. These are lawyers and doctors and other people who would be making much more but are going to Congress for other reasons. Some of them, yes, are even millionaires, like John Kerry, or whose wife is a millionaire. So he can afford to do this out of his own luxury. But if you look at the actual problem, the problem is that many congressmen don't have a way of getting this income. When was the last time you bought your congressman's book? And by the way, Sarah Palin was a governor, not a congresswoman. One reality TV show of a governor does not make the case for all congressmen. You have to look at the issues themselves. The issue is that our Congress is inefficient because, quite frankly, most congressmen will leave as millionaires. Why? It's not the salary that they're getting, and it's sure not the pension that they're getting. It's the lobbyists that are paying them off because they can afford to be paid off. Because our democracy is underpaying our congressmen. If you look at places where where congressmen are popular, such as New Zealand or Thailand, they pay their congressmen $1 billion a year. And they get results. You don't get results by paying your elected officials less. These people who are doing it are either corrupt or the people who are doing it out of a hobby and spend their own money. Most people, you cannot afford to be a congressman.
Brett Howard from Minnesota. I reserve the right to yield any remaining time to Mr. Ben Jackson of Alabama.
So reserved.
What this proposal solves is the problem of career politicians. Politicians who our founders would never have anticipated given their reluctance to participate in politics. Without a pension, without any sort of compensation after their work is done, they'll be more likely to go back to work after a certain period in order to build a nest egg, in order to build an actual life and actually have a job. Or they will be more likely to build that income and then, once they are more experienced, more wise, join politicians later in life and not become entrenched in the daily dirty politics of Washington. And career politicians, vote aye for this proposal. I yield my time to the delegate from Alabama.
You've yielded 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Thank you to the previous delegate and to the chair, Jackson family of Alabama. I'm going to start off by talking about some of the most wonderful phrases or words in the English language, which are the following. Kona, bow ties, and accountability. My favorite of these three words, though, today at least, is accountability. And this is exactly what this proposal provides. Now, we're all leaders here in some form or fashion, and we all know that true leaders never ask things of their followers that they are not willing to do themselves. This is exactly what congressmen are currently doing. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, Social Security is broken. If we want it to break, no, but it is broken. Our grandparents and parents have no guarantee that they will ever see a penny of the money that they put into this program. Now, by putting congressmen onto Social Security and other government programs like this, they're going to be forced to change this program because it is what they're going to be living on. It is accountability for what they are doing. Congressmen make more than anyone else in the country. The numbers are in front of you. This is absurd. The gap between our leaders and the actual people.
So reserved.
Okay, I agree. Congressmen are too rich, they're too out of touch, and they're too corrupt. However, this proposal will not help them. For they have to go back to the market, they have to do the job, and let's face it, they've used a certain level of respectability as well, and suits and bow ties. They'll have to go and lobby. They have to work with one of these corporations that can spend years influencing them. So if they have to do this, they work, like people are smart, okay? They think in advance. So they know they're going to have to work with one of these organizations. They might say, hey, Goldman Sachs, I'll help you out, I'll give you a special something, and in the hopes of getting hired afterwards. This is already a problem. However, it's going to be much, much worse if congressmen were forced to get jobs afterwards. And I want you guys to vote no on this solely because I think this would increase corruption, not decrease it. I yield the remainder of my time to the delegate from New Jersey.
You've yielded 50 seconds.
Matt France, New Jersey. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one thing I'd like to point out is that the author stated that the average net worth of a senator in Congress is $13.5 million. They did not make this money by working in Congress. $170,000 a year isn't enough to make you $10 million, no matter how long you've worked there. And so that means they made this money before they entered Congress. That means they're taking a pay cut by entering Congress. Also, just last year, Congress actually halted its salary increase. They kept it at $170,000, which means that they actually took a net loss in real income. And therefore, these congressmen, since they're making the toughest decisions, deserve compensation for their work. And I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you, delegate. With that, we will move to the author's final.
Mr. Congressman, you work for me. I don't work for you. Howard Hughes echoed these words. many, many years ago, and they still ring true today. The point was made that it is difficult for these members of Congress to make their decisions. How about the American people? How hard is it for them to look at these members of Congress, their cocktail circuits, their parties, their champagne and caviar lifestyle, and John Kerry even moving his boat to the next state to avoid property taxes? Furthermore, I think George Washington made a few more difficult decisions than Nancy Pelosi, or Jeff Merkley, or John Kerry, or John Boehner for that matter. Did George Washington get a guaranteed pension? No! Think about that! When the average U.S. family household income is $52,000 per year and declining, why should our members of Congress get a pension that is similar to that? Think about that. And furthermore, let me show you an example of this principle in practice. In my home state of Ohio, I am a public employee. By law, our governor, his appointees, and the legislature are required to be on the same pension system that I am on. I am a peon, they were elected, yet we get the same benefits. Our pension system is 85% funded, and it is not going broke like Social Security is. If we are ever, to use a Conan term, shift gears, they must have the same reality as us. They must have skin in the game. They must face the same reality that our grandparents will face and that we will face. That is what we must think of tonight. And furthermore, the point was brought up that these members of Congress are wealthy before they get in. Let me bring up a statistic from the Center for Responsive Politics, aka OpenSecrets.org. Barack Obama was worth only 6 figures before he became a U.S. Senator, yet afterwards he was worth $10.2 million. I think it's safe to say that our U.S. Congress members and our President don't have to worry about feeding their families, while many Americans are starving and even homeless. It is a fundamental disgrace that they are so insulated and so unaccountable, while we have to balance our budgets, and we have to worry about our retirement, and we have to find our nest eggs. So before you vote, think about this. While I have no parachute, while the fundamental promise of Social Security is broken, while I'm going to have to fend for my own retirement, why should my member of Congress get a guaranteed pension? And lastly, the glory tonight goes not to me, but to God. For He brought me here tonight with you people for this week. You are some of the most amazing, intelligent, well-spoken people. You even got me shouting for crying out loud. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will never forget any of you and the passion that you ignited in me, for bringing me here and for letting me be in your company for this week. It just goes to show God loves you and me, and I thank you for tonight. Thank you for the passion, for the electricity, for the spirit fingers, for everything, for the debate. I love you all. And with that, I give the remainder of my time to the chair.
The Dutch Christian community defines homosexuality as a personal choice and not a sin. Now, they're in the Netherlands. Now, maybe we can go through diplomacy and think of not only inviting refugees from the gay community that are being persecuted in other countries, not to just come seek refuge to the United States, but other countries as well. And with that, I yield my remainder time to the delegate from Louisiana.
1 minute. We're in Jackson, Louisiana. I could come up here and I could tell you that I'm in support of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual community, and yes, I am, but you don't care about that, do you? What you care about is the people's left hand. And I would like to say, I rode out Hurricane Katrina, and I know a broken home when I see one. And America is not the safest place for these people. Canada, the Czech Republic, Norway, the Netherlands, we need to send them somewhere where we can... I do not want somebody to come into this country and have to see the broken look in their face when they were persecuted in another part of the world, and they come here, and they cry, and they get tortured and murdered just as they were in their other country. Could you live with yourself if that happened? Could you live with yourself? I'd like to quote Incubus. Do not let the world bring you down. Not everyone here is that messed up and cold. Remember why you came, and while you're alive, experience the warmth before you die. And with that, I yield my time to the chair. Thank you, Delegate. At this time, it is in order for the author's summation. The author is recognized for 2 minutes and 28 seconds of closing statement.
Thank you, Sir Chair, and I thank you all for your really passionate debate. I found that incredibly inspiring. The first argument that seems to be brought up quite often is that this proposal is somehow not feasible. But right off the bat, I need to reiterate the fact that my proposal does nothing whatsoever to change the already established refugee process and the way in which refugees are admitted. If you look around this room, you would not be able to differentiate a Christian from a Muslim from a Jew. And yet, the USCIS is able to determine which religious minorities are being persecuted abroad in the same way that they would be able to determine if someone is actually homosexual or not. This is a thorough vetting process, and for that, I don't find that a valid argument.
Delegate, I ask that you please speak more into the microphone.
I apologize. As for the fact that the definition of a refugee already includes the LGBT community, I would first like to say that Britain is not the United States, so that's important to keep in mind. And beyond that, it is argued by the Human Rights Coordinator that the LGBT community is actually the most persecuted group in the world. For them to not have their own specific group within the definition of a refugee status is offensive and shows that we clearly have something against these people more than the fact that they're already included in the definition, if that were even applicable. As for the idea that we should not be involved in foreign entanglements, we've been doing this. Once again, I reiterate, we have been admitting Christians from anti-Christian countries for 50 years, and yet there have been no negative repercussions because of that. I have no reason to believe that this proposal will do any of that. And beyond that, these people are being killed for who they are. I don't think we would want to have that great of diplomatic relations with a country that's persecuting people in such an extreme way anyways. As for the idea that we shouldn't let these people come to our country because we don't have equal rights here, well, I'd like to say that I have different priorities, I guess. Call me old-fashioned, but I'd rather have my life than a spouse, and I can't help but feel like everyone in this room would agree with that. And perhaps most offensively, I cannot stand here and again listen to the idea that pedophilia is in any way related to homosexuality. When I just had a good friend of mine who considers himself a homosexual individual come up to the stage and say that he was hurt by those comments, I hope you all can understand that pedophilia is a social disorder, a sexual disorder. Homosexuality is a sexual orientation. There is a large difference between these two groups. And with that, I cannot stand to have that argument brought up anymore, and I hope that you will not consider that a valid reason for not admitting these people into the country.
Thank you, author. I'm sorry, but your time has elapsed. The motion before this plenary session is that proposal number 303 does pass.